Hello, and welcome to Making Sense of It. I'm Mona Duncan, your moderator. This program is our gift to you from the Glasser Institute for Choice Theory. And today our speaker is Sue
Tomaszewski.
Tomaszewski. Thank you.
It's a lot of letters and syllables.
And Sue always has something that is very intriguing and very deep. And today she's going to be talking about keeping your word. And her description here is very in-depth, but she will explain it all to us. So, Sue, we're ready when you are.
Okay, well, I'm trying to keep my word, but I have a cat who's decided he wants to be part of this. So, Stuart, you got to go away now. There we go. Okay. So I'm sharing my screen. Yes, no, not yet. I guess that's what I forgot to do. Let me do that. One more time. And
well, while Sue's getting her screen up, I'll give you a blurb as to what she's talking about. Exploring connections between helping one's word and the difficulty people find in maintaining this important action. Consider keeping our word as an indicator of commitment, integrity, trustworthiness, and positive interaction.
Okay. Well, and part of what I've done here, please alter the pronoun as you need to. It's either keeping our word, keeping my word, keeping your word, keeping their word, whatever pronoun you want to put in its place. All right, which I hope will be okay. And so I'm asking you, have you ever, how many of these have you heard, have you said? Okay, let's get together soon. No, not to worry. He said he'd take care of it early this week. I'll call you. But I can't finish my part until I get the rest from hers, but she promised. Differently, how many of these have you heard and have you believed? Vote for me and I promise your life will be better. If you only do da-da-da, we'll send you a free da-da-da. Buy this and you'll look better. And if you want more of such and such, if you just do such and such, and happiness will be yours. So the idea being is, what have we said? What have we heard? What have we, in a sense, committed to? What are we actually talking about here? So as Mona said, we're going to look about the connections of between keeping one's word and difficulty, commitment, integrity, trustworthiness, and intentions, and also how keeping your word really does contribute to positive relationships. And how come there's sometimes a struggle, that somebody might struggle to keep a promise that they made. And I'm sure we've all possibly used the excuse, well, life just got in the way. I really meant to, but life got in the way, in trying to explain the situation without really making excuses. But is that an excuse? And what does that really mean? And is there a way that choice theory might help us and to more reasonably and respond to people who don't? So I was thinking about, well, what's meant by keeping one's word? And I thought, well, maybe it means commitment, which is an agreement or pledge to do something in the future. It's a state or an instance of being obligated or emotionally impelled. And that's Merriam-Webster describing that. It's an engagement or obligation that restricts freedom from action. I thought that was interesting as a high freedom need person from dictionary.com. The trait of sincere and steadfast fixity of purpose. You can count on me. I am steadfast in what I will do. The act of binding yourself, interestingly, intellectually or emotionally to a course of action. And that's Princeton's WordNet. A promise or firm decision to do something. A willingness to give your time and energy to a job, activity, or something you believe in. Something that you must do or deal with that takes your time. And that's from Cambridge Dictionary. So you start thinking about, what are the commitments? What are the commitments we say out loud? What are the commitments we make in writing? What are the commitments that are just inferred? So for instance, I have a commitment to, I have 2 cats in the house. I have a commitment to them. I have a commitment that says, yes, I will feed them. Yes, I will deal with their kitty litter, and I will do that within a reasonable amount of time for them and for me. Do they have a commitment back to me? They're cats, not particularly, but yet on the other hand, they sort of do. You know, I have one who's with me right now that I'm just hoping leaning into my arm will be sufficient for him without actually having to be part of the PowerPoint here. Another way what's meant by keeping one's word, it's a promise. So is it to tell someone that you will certainly do something? That's Cambridge Dictionary. A declaration or assurance that one will do a particular thing or that a particular thing will happen, dictionary.com. Assure someone that one will definitely do or arrange something, undertake or declare that something will happen, also dictionary.com. A declaration that one will do or refrain from doing something specified. So that's really interesting, Merriam-Webster, that I will do something or I won't do something. So it almost goes back to Dr. Glasser saying to us in the quality schools, he talks about, here's who I am, here's what I stand for, here's what I will do for you, here's what I won't do for you. Here's what I expect from you, here's what I don't expect from you. So it's a yes and no. You can expect me to do this, but you can't expect me to do that. You know, don't count on me for this, that, or the other thing. And then it can be a legally binding declaration that give the person to whom it is made a right to expect or to claim the performance or forbearance or a specified act. So, I mean, right now we're hearing on the news this morning, they were talking about what Russia has said they will do with Ukraine, you know, and the promises that are being made. And people are going back and forth and saying, but will Russia keep their word? Will Putin do what he says he's doing? And then they talk about how people are skeptical. Will he? Won't he? You know, based on previous experience. And that's about the same thing. When we make promises to each other, do we have, any of us have people who we've made promises to that we haven't kept? Are there people who've made promises to you that you haven't kept? So I just thought about it this morning. So this is, pardon me for the raggedy-tagginess of this, but I thought, how might results be considered along the continuum? So for instance, we're asking somebody to do something, do they just not show up at all? And under what conditions is that a right to just not show up? So I know the other night we had a Northeast board meeting for the quality schools, no, for choice theory, sorry. For the Glasser Institute for Choice Theory, we had a Northeast meeting. And at the Northeast meeting, our membership chair did not show up. And it's like, okay, well, Craig hasn't been well and what's been going on. And, you know, we love him dearly and all right, you know, and people are texting him, Craig, where are you? And a day or two later, he texted us back and said he had fallen and he's been in bed all of this time. So he apologized. So he's a no-show, but do we forgive him? Yeah. On the other hand, somebody says they didn't show up. Are they a no-show because they forgot? Or they got involved in something that was just more fun? You know, are you so apt to forgive and forget? Then we also have people who they're there, but barely. You know, they're just there, they're just kind of hanging out. You know, and they don't really contribute anything, but they're in attendance. And then we have some that are there and they're just complying. You know, and I think about this when Tom was ill and we had aides in the house. So there were some who they would show up, but they were barely here. They were always on their phone or they're always doing whatever. And they weren't much assistance unless I really insisted that they assist like they were hired to do. And there were some that would just comply and they would just do the bare minimum. And then there were others who really did quality. You know, they spent time with Tom. They were almost reading Tom's mind on what he needed. They would do it before. And then there's people who are beyond quality. You know, there are people who would actually contact me or try and contact him even when they weren't on for that day or time. So just really interesting as to, could it be a continuum in terms of keeping our word? So as we look a little further, here's some interesting thoughts on keeping your word or our word. So in the Sydney Morning Herald, there's an opinion piece by Harold Mitchell. According to Princeton University lecturer Rachel Ferguson, word is bond. And it became a legal agreement between merchants in the 16th century prior to written pledges. She also noted that since the establishment of the London Stock Exchange in 1801, it has a motto that's been dictum meum pactum, word is bond. And then there's a post in the Tithely Next by Dale Dina Schwartz. She's written quite a bit about this. I've learned it's best not to take it personally when someone says they'll do something and then doesn't, and it doesn't materialize. People have their issues about why they say things they won't do. The most important thing to understand is that other people aren't you, and their priorities aren't yours. As we go further, here's some additional thoughts on keeping your word, keeping our word this time. And so from Kimberly Jackson's, these are 5 tips on keeping your word. So she recommends to make it concrete. Make sure that whatever it is that you're saying you can do is actually possible, first of all. Don't commit to doing something you might not be able to do. Keeping promises will allow you to have a sense of pride, as well as give you a great reputation among other people. Get it in writing. Having things written down allows for both parties to be clear in what's expected and avoids any miscommunication along the way. Verbal agreements can often be problematic, as different people in the conversation may take things in a different way, and that can lead to some confusion. So Sharon and I know when we do the quality school meeting, and there's 2 others, so one of us says, okay, I'll do blah, 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 and here, if we do it, let's do it, blah, 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 and somebody else picks it up and doesn't. It's like, but I said I would do that. Wait a minute, now we've done it twice. Like, hold it, and now we've done it differently. So what, it's like, can we get it in writing? So very often we'll email back and forth just to make sure that this is what we've said and agreed to. And small promises count. Keeping small promises is a great way to build up your reputation. No matter how big or small a promise is, keeping your word will always have a positive effect on you and the other people around you. Do it anyway. Avoid making excuses. Even when you're finding things difficult, there's always a solution to your problems, and it's important that you find a solution rather than giving up on yourself. Giving up on yourself should never be the option. Keep to your word and make yourself proud every day. So now it almost sounds like we're talking quality world picture here. Who am I and what do I stand for? And expect the same from others. You should always expect the best of people and give them your utmost respect, excuse me, until they are not worthy of it anymore. When someone fails to keep their word, make sure you let them know that you're disappointed by them. Let them know how them not keeping to their promise has affected you, so that they know to keep to their word in the future. Maybe that's coercive. Maybe that isn't quite the way to do. I'm not really sure. But for instance, an example, and I'm going to use Mona and Sharon. Mona we had some discrepancy over some of the work that Mona was doing with another person. And Sharon and I are part of the training committee. So as the training committee, Mona said, well, is this okay? And we both said, well, okay, we'll look this over. And Mona told us, no hurry. When Mona said no hurry, Sharon and I both went, okay. And we just went on to other things. We didn't bother with it. And Mona realized, unless she was more specific with us, we weren't going to pay attention to her, and we'd get to it eventually. So now Mona now sends a very sweet email and says, I really need this by the 31st. And we answered, okay, we're seeing each other tomorrow. We will take care of this. And sure enough, we did it. Then we just did it. So she had it yesterday. But if Mona hadn't said by such and such day, we would have gotten to it, but when it came out on the list, right? Her list was different than our list. So just interesting in terms of expect the same of others and perhaps get it in writing. Interesting way that way. So here's some other thoughts. People have lots of opinions on keeping one's word. So promise is a big word. It either makes something or it breaks everything. If you say you're going to do something, then do it. Otherwise, just keep your lies to yourself. Kind of like that one. When you say you will do something and don't do it, you teach others and yourself that you cannot be trusted. I don't trust words, I trust actions. When you make a commitment, you build hope. When you keep it, you build trust. This one is a little hard to read. Keep my word is such is such a strange expression. Just at a glance, it just means I'm going to make this a little bit bigger for myself. At first glance, it just means be true to what you agree on, but it could often also mean hold your words back, keep them in, let your action speak instead. So quite a lot of ideas here. Now, the other piece being is, well, how come people might not keep their word? So you really start to think about what's going on. Are there reasons that are legitimate? Are there reasons that aren't quite as legitimate? Are we asking the wrong people to help us with some things? Are the wrong people volunteering to do some things? So I'm thinking about, let's view this from a basic needs perspective. So we think about it from love and belonging, power, freedom, fun, survival. And again, from Deanna Schwartz, she says, next time someone doesn't keep their word, think about what you might have said or done to put them on the spot to agree to what they said. Did you push for them to say they'd help? Or did you have an attitude that begged them to say yes? I know I've done that to people who later disappear from my life. While it's wrong to not keep your word, sometimes our pushing or asking too much makes people give lip service to get away in a peaceful way. So from a choice theory perspective, we're not making anybody do anything, but sometimes how much of it is about love and belonging? I find it really interesting. My best friend's daughter, who's my niece, she's just gotten married and they've got a house that needs, oh my God, so much work. It was her father's house and he had died and he just was a hoarder and all of this other stuff. So anyway, they need a lot of help with the house. And it's really interesting because my girlfriend is not asking me to help because she knows I'm not going to paint. I'm going to hire somebody to paint. I'm not going to clean. I'm going to hire a cleaning person to do it. I'm not scrubbing this tub. I won't do that. So she doesn't even ask me for that. She just doesn't. They'll ask me for other things, and I apologize. And she says, don't worry about it. Nope, that's just because she doesn't expect that from me, because she knows I'm not going to do it for myself. I'm not going to do it for them, so I don't even get asked, even though there's a high level of belonging need in there. How much of it, though, is appealing to someone's power need? Like, gee, I really hope you do this because you're really good at it. Can I count on you too? Because you are good. So for instance, same girlfriend, if we do New Year's Eve, Kristen, will you cook? Because I'm not good at it. She is. So she cooks. I do the table. I clean up. I do that kind of stuff. I don't clean the house before. The cleaning lady does that. But all right. Might it just not be as important to them as it is to you? So maybe it's about a freedom need. So freedom from something. Now, this one too, this one comes from Jan L. Bowen. And she says, we've all done it, right? You tell your friend, your child, your partner that, yeah, sure, you'll do X, Y, or Z for them, but then you don't actually do it. Making a promise to someone is one of the most powerful forms of communication in existence. Yet how many times do you make vows that you can't possibly keep? As a society, we put our faith in promises to help us negotiate peace between nations, solve disasters, commit to love, and create families. And yet, for most of us, when it comes to the promises, big and small, that we make each other daily, we usually break more than we keep. Why is that? We already know breaking promises has this disastrous effect. It not only disappoints the person we promised, but it also erodes bits of our self-esteem too. Brain research shows that breaking promises actually registers in our brain activity, showing up as emotional conflict for the promise breaker as a result of suppressing their honesty. Of course, things happen. We can't always keep our word exactly as we promised. Businesses frequently say they'll complete a service in a particular way and within a definite time frame, but then change those plans. Or a friend or family member promises to call, visit, or write soon, but then don't in the way they say they would, if at all. This is in itself a problem. Trust erodes when promises aren't kept, and no communication follows to explain or clarify. There is an implicit responsibility to follow up with the person we broke our word to, no matter how casually. If we want to maintain positive social relationships with that person and feel good about ourselves too. So now we think about the current strategy of ghosting somebody when you're texting and they just don't answer. Oh, you're being ghosted. Wait now. Report back here. When a promise is broken, details no longer matter as much as the other person begins to feel unimportant. The relationship between you loses its value and why no longer matters. Disappointment sets in, promises you make no longer hold weight. It's hard to trust or feel excited about anything you say because others just don't believe or you'll follow through. And so the relationship continues to erode. Broken agreements have a long-lasting impact. And you struggle in the relationship too. Your conscience reminds you how badly you feel for not keeping your word and how others suffer. You're out of integrity with yourself as well as those that you have given to others. So then the idea being is, are there acceptable excuses? Well, sorry, I just can't today. My sisters, friends, mothers, grandpas, brothers, grandsons, uncles, fish died. And it was just really just tragic. He that is good for making excuses is seldom good for anything else. And from George Washington, it is better to offer no excuse than a bad one. So Jen Bowen, if breaking promises causes so much damage, then why do we continue to do it? And reminding that Dr. Glasser reminded us that all behavior is purposeful. So she says, you honestly do have good intentions. We want to fulfill our promise, but usually just aren't able to follow through. If such and such hadn't happened and I needed to, I truly would have done as promised. Is that possibly power? Is it love and belonging? Is it just an inaccurate self-evaluation? Is it poor planning? You're stating the behavior you wish you did regularly for people. Our best self would do this, even though we know our real self just stands a little chance of it. Is that a quality world picture, but without accurate self-evaluation? You don't feel like enough of what you are. So for instance, we overpromise as a way to curry favor and approval from others, that we have certain personal traits. So we make promises around that behavior, hoping to boost our self-esteem in their eyes. We may be an attempt, but probably not the best way to meet our power need. And you're just uncomfortable saying no. It's difficult to say no to the people we care about or who have some sort of influence over us. Rather than risk an immediate negative reaction from them, we tell them something they want to hear at the moment. Saying yes when you mean no is a toxic communication pattern. Learn how to say no nicely in your own way, but definitely learn how to say no. And is that love and belonging? Or have you just not developed an organized behavior system for saying no yet? And from Dr. Glasser, consider how these aspects of relationships align with keeping our word. He told us that it's a necessity to have a good relationship with a responsible person in order to fulfill one's needs. And might we determine that the more responsible a person is, the better that they would be at making promises they are able to keep. As long as we insist on controlling people around us, we will create unnecessary suffering in our lives, says Dr. Glasser. And might we be more cautious in what and how we request a promise or a commitment from someone so it doesn't seem coercive or put the relationship at risk? And we are at our happiest in relationships when we are able to satisfy our basic needs, feel supported and loved, and feel that the other person is not trying to control us. So might we consider how we can say no to a request without hurting the relationship, and also consider who best to ask when we make a request from someone? More from Dr. Glasser. He told us in practice, the most important need is love and belonging, as closeness and connections with the people we care about is a requisite for satisfying all the needs. So if all long-lasting psychological problems are relationship problems, if we have a relationship with someone who doesn't keep their word, how might we respond? Do we sever the relationship? Do we maintain the relationship but just stop asking them for anything, just enjoy their company? Do we assume they would help if they were able and continue to help them if we're asked? Do we explain the consequences we faced when they didn't follow through and that their help would definitely have been appreciated? So now, how much of this is quality world picture? This is what I consider myself to be. This is what I want. This is what I really want. Does it matter who the people are we're committing to, that we're keeping our word to? The things that we want, the ideas or systems, and how need satisfying are the commitments that we're making? Does it matter what role we're playing? As a counselor, is there a time when these are the strategies that we're doing When we're counseling, we're helping others to evaluate, we're not evaluating for them. We're aiding others in improving their processes, again, not doing it for them. As a lead manager, are we helping people to keep their word? Are we keeping our word to them? When we're teaching and we're giving them information, is that the most helpful way? Or bottom line, is it just part of being a friend? Who you are, what you stand for, what you'll do, what you won't do, and what we'll ask of them, what we won't ask of them. And we're also looking at, do the habits help us? Do the caring habits help us in assisting and keeping our word? Could that be another habit? Or does it fit under accepting? Does it fit under trusting? Does it fit under respecting? Could the questioning process, reality therapy, help us to make a request, helping to fulfill a request? So what do I really want? What do I really want from me, for you, for this situation? What have I been doing? When I make a request in this manner, has it helped me? Has it gotten me what I wanted? Do I need to change the way I make the request? Do I need to change who I make the request of? And how effective have those behaviors been when I've chosen to request in a certain way, when I've chosen to fulfill my word in a certain way? And would another plan help me? So in closing, from Samantha Barnett's Keeping Your Word in the jewishwoman's.org, she says, my mother likes to say your word is your wand. Words have meaning, whether or not we mean them. When we tell someone we will do something, we are creating expectations. Keeping our word builds trust. Trust gives us security. Security builds healthy and happy relationships. In a world of 24/7 communication, most of which does not involve face-to-face interaction, it is easy to overlook the significance of our words. Words may be everywhere, but they are anything but cheap. If we make a habit of thinking before we speak, will we become more sensitive human beings? Words are so important that if we make a verbal promise, it becomes a moral obligation. We must then do everything in our power not to go back on our word.
So that's it. Yeah.
That is it.
Wonderful, wonderful. I find that you started off getting all these advertising blurbs that everything's going to happen and it's just the end all to end all. And then realizing that what we say and what they understand is two different things.
Could be.
Yeah. And it very well could be, and being open to that and seeing that. And I love how the fact that you always look at not only the 5 basic needs, but especially the 4 psychological needs, and to help us to evaluate as to what our needs are as opposed to what another person's needs are, so that we can be in alignment and remain friends, even if the word is not kept as the way we had pictured it in our mind. So thank you very much for stepping up.
You're welcome very much.
And we will go ahead and close this out. Those of you that are here live, we will have this open discussion. So I'll close it out and thank everyone for watching this, and good mental health.